My name is Sophia. I am 65 years old, and if you had met me just a few years ago, you might have thought I had everything figured out. For 4 decades, I stood in lecture halls at one of the most prestigious universities in the country. A professor of philosophy admired by colleagues and students alike. I published books, presented at conferences across the world, and filled my office shelves with awards, plaques, and framed photographs from academic banquets. People looked at me and saw wisdom, influence, and a woman who had made her mark in higher education. But what they could not see was the silence that swallowed me when I went home each night. For years, I told myself that my work was enough, that pouring my life into knowledge, into teaching, into the pursuit of ideas, would fill the emptiness I carried inside. And yet, no lecture, no standing ovation, no published paper could quiet the ache that grew heavier with each passing year. I lived alone in a spacious townhouse not far from campus. I had colleagues who respected me, students who adored me, but when the applause ended and the lights dimmed, there was no one waiting to ask how I was doing. My phone buzzed constantly with emails, but rarely with love. At faculty dinners, I laughed at the right moments, sipped wine, and looked every bit the accomplished scholar. But when I returned home, I sometimes stood at the kitchen counter with my hand wrapped around a glass of Cabernet, staring into nothing, whispering questions no one could answer. I told others I chose my career over marriage, that I was too focused for children, that I was free. But the truth is, freedom without peace is just another prison. The silence inside me had a root, a place I avoided at all costs. When I was 24, in the middle of my doctoral program, I discovered I was pregnant. His name was Daniel, a fellow graduate student. We were young, full of plans and ambition, but I was terrified. Terrified that motherhood would shatter the future I had worked so hard to build. Terrified of disappointing my strict Catholic parents, terrified of losing control. I told no one. Not Daniel, not my parents, not even my closest friend. Within a week, I made the appointment and ended the pregnancy. I walked out of that clinic with my chin lifted high, as if nothing had happened. A week later, I ended my relationship with Daniel and never told him why. I buried the memory under research papers, late-night studying, and the endless climb toward tenure. But every year on April 19th, the date of that appointment, something inside me broke. I didn't even have to look at the calendar. My body remembered. I would find myself sitting at my desk, staring at a blank screen, tears slipping down my cheeks with no explanation. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, hormones, anything but the truth. But deep down, I knew. I was mourning the child I had never held, the life I had silenced. For decades, I carried that secret like a locked box in my soul. I smiled, I lectured, I wrote books about ethics and meaning, yet I avoided the one truth that haunted me. I had chosen ambition over life. And no degree, no award, no recognition could erase the quiet voice that whispered late at night. What if? What if you had been braver? What if you had chosen differently? By the time I reached 65, my body began reminding me that time is no respecter of accomplishments. For years, I ignored the quiet warnings: fatigue, shortness of breath, dizziness after long lectures. I told myself it was stress, or the price of aging gracefully, but in truth, my body was waving a flag I refused to see. One winter morning, as I stood before a classroom, my vision blurred and I collapsed in front of 40 stunned students. The hospital tests came back quickly. My heart was failing. The doctors told me I needed surgery. Routine, they said. We've done it 1,000 times. But the word routine doesn't comfort you when you're signing papers that say risk of death. I remember sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, the gown loose around my shoulders, my hands trembling as I held the pen. All my life, I had been the one with answers. lecturing on life, death, and the human condition. Now I was a frightened old woman staring at mortality. The night before surgery, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling tiles in that sterile room, listening to the rhythmic beeping of the machines, and for the first time in decades, I spoke aloud to God. Not in philosophical language, not in academic reasoning, but in the broken voice of a child. God, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't even know if I deserve to be heard. But if I don't wake up tomorrow, please, forgive me. My voice cracked on that last word. Forgive me for Daniel. Forgive me for my silence. Forgive me for the life I ended. When the morning came, they wheeled me into the bright operating room. I remember the cold sting of the IV, the anesthesiologist's voice telling me to count backwards. 10, 9, 8. My chest felt heavy, and then darkness. But it wasn't the kind of darkness that suffocates. It was the kind that feels like the curtain has fallen after a long play. And then something happened. I opened my eyes, expecting to see fluorescent lights or masked surgeons. Instead, I was standing in a vast space of soft light, gentle, warm, unlike anything I had ever seen on Earth. My body felt lighter than air, as if the weight of all my regrets had been stripped away in an instant. I looked down and realized I was no longer lying on an operating table. I was standing, alive in a place that was not the hospital, not the world I knew. Then I saw him, an angel. He was tall, clothed in radiant white with eyes that carried both fire and tenderness. He did not speak with his mouth, yet I heard his voice deep inside me. "Sophia," he said, "do not be afraid. You are known. You are loved." Tears rushed to my eyes. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare at this being who knew my name, my story, my soul. He reached out his hand, and though I didn't feel flesh, I felt a current of peace rush through me. "You have carried a secret for 40 years, he continued, "but heaven has carried you. The mercy you have doubted has been waiting for you." I tried to protest, to explain, to confess what I had done decades ago, but before I could form the words, the angel lifted his hand gently. "All is known," he said, "and still, you are loved." In that moment, something inside me broke, but it was not despair, it was relief. For the first time in decades, I realized I was no longer hiding. I was fully seen, and yet fully embraced. The angel motioned for me to follow, and though there were no steps beneath my feet, I moved effortlessly, as if the very light carried me forward. The air shimmered, filled with a fragrance I cannot describe, something purer than flowers, softer than rain, richer than anything I had ever breathed. I felt no pain, no heaviness, only peace. We came to what looked like a meadow, endless and radiant, where colors danced in ways Earth could never capture. The angel stopped, turned to me and said, "Sophia, there is someone who has been waiting to see you." My heart trembled. Before I could ask who, I saw a figure running toward me. A child. No, not quite a child, but not grown either. A boy with eyes like mine, shining with a light I had never known. And then it struck me. April 19th, the day I had tried to bury, the date etched into my body. I fell to my knees as tears streamed down my face. "My child," I whispered, though my voice broke. "My baby." He came closer, smiling, not with accusation, not with anger, but with joy. "Mother," he said softly, "I have always loved you." I covered my face with trembling hands. "I don't deserve this," I sobbed. "I don't deserve you. I chose my career, my pride, my fear. I took your life before it began. How can you stand here smiling at me?" The angel stepped forward, placing his hand gently on my shoulder. Sophia, in heaven there is no condemnation for those who turn to love. Your son has never stopped loving you. His life was not erased. It was held in the hands of the Father. What you carried as shame, heaven has carried as grace. I lifted my eyes again, and there he was. My son, his face radiant, his smile wide, his presence filling every corner of my heart that had been empty for 4 decades. He reached out his hand, and though I couldn't feel skin, I felt warmth pass into me, pure forgiveness, pure love. Mother, he said again, I forgive you. I always forgave you. I want you to live, to love, to teach with your whole heart. You gave knowledge to many, but now you must give them hope. Tell them they are not beyond mercy. Tell them God's love is bigger than their mistakes. I wept uncontrollably, but it was not the weeping of despair. It was release. The guilt that had chained me for 40 years broke in an instant. My son pulled me into his embrace, and though it was not a human embrace, I felt it deeper than any hug on earth. For the first time, I felt like a mother, not in shame, but in love. The angel looked at me with eyes that seemed to pierce eternity. Sophia, he said, this is not the end of your journey. What you have seen is a gift, but you must go back. Your story is not finished. There are women, men, and students who need the hope you carry. You will tell them what you have seen, and they will know mercy is real. I shook my head. No, I pleaded. Please don't make me go back. I want to stay here, with him, with this peace. I don't want to return to the loneliness, the sorrow, the ache of this world. The angel's expression softened. You will not return to loneliness. You will return with love, with freedom, with a mission. Heaven's peace will walk with you. And one day, when your true time comes, you will return here, not to visit, but to stay. Until then, live with the joy you have found. I held my son one more time, tears flowing freely. I love you, I whispered. And I love you, Mother, he said. Always. As I clung to the presence of my son, the light around us grew even brighter. I turned, and there he was, Jesus. His presence was unlike anything I had ever known, stronger than the angel, deeper than even my child's embrace. His eyes were like fire and tenderness all at once, seeing through me and into me, yet loving me without hesitation. I fell to my knees, unable to speak. All my rehearsed apologies, my academic reasoning, my years of silent regret, they crumbled in his presence. I was simply a woman, broken and small, kneeling before the one who had always loved me. Sophia, he said, his voice like a river of life. I was with you on April 19th. I carried the tears you never cried aloud. I never turned away from you, even when you turned away from me. And now I give you peace. Your story is not over. Your breath has not ended. You will go back, not to punishment, but to purpose. My son stood beside him, smiling. The angel bowed low, and I wept, not in despair, but in awe. But Lord, I whispered, how can I face the world again? How can I walk back into that empty townhouse, into the same life I left behind? Jesus reached out his hand. When you return, it will not be the same life. You will not walk in emptiness. You will walk with me. You have been given truth. Now you must give it away. Tell your students. Tell the women who hide in silence. Tell the ones who believe they are beyond redemption. Your story will be a bridge, and through it, others will find their way to me. In that moment, I felt his love flood through me, stronger than any guilt, stronger than death itself. And then, with a gentle nod from the angel, the light began to fade. My son waved, his voice echoing in my spirit. Remember, Mother, love is greater than regret. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air in the hospital bed, doctors shouting, machines beeping. I was alive. But I was not the same. That was 3 years ago. I am still a professor, but my lectures are different now. I no longer hide behind books and theories. I tell my students the truth, that no degree, no success, no applause can fill the emptiness of the soul. Only love can, only God can. I share my story openly, of my failure, my loss, my encounter with heaven, and the mercy that met me there. And every time I speak, I see faces soften, tears fall, hearts open. And now I share it with you, not to glorify my past, but to glorify the one who redeemed it. If you have carried a silent wound, know this: you are not beyond love, you are not beyond mercy, you are not beyond hope. Heaven knows your name. If my story has touched you, I invite you to do 2 things. Share your own story in the comments. You never know who your words might heal. And if you feel led, support through super chats or giving, so this message can continue reaching more broken hearts who need hope. Your story matters, your healing matters, and you are loved beyond measure.